didn't get collected either.
Yeah.
He does not build everyone's.
So I joined Clara
So where did we go?
weight room, and there was another one that I don't
The ag building, they didn't say it was an ag building.
I told them, do not forget the weight room in the ag building. Alex Fieldwork was going over to the ag building.
Or maybe they did, but we were in the greenhouse and so our things didn't get picked up.
There's 22 in there.
All right, thank you. It's irritating. Shouldn't be so hard to go to everybody. So did you go in the weight room?
No, but Lila was in the weight room this morning and she said she had money, so I tried to open her locker with no information.
All right, so what is the x-intercept? Yep, it's the two places where it hits. So that's at -1 and +3. We had two x-intercepts there. Y-intercept, -7, approximately. Kind of hard to tell with my graph. If you had said -6, that was also close. So without the actual graph, it's hard to tell there. Zeros. Yeah, zeros are the same thing as x-intercepts. -1 and 3. Vertex. So that's the ordered pair. So the x value is 1. The y value is -8. Questions there? Yes, ma'am.
Do you not put the x-intercept in the zeros and
You can write these as ordered pairs, -1, 0, and 3, 0 for the x-intercept. The y-intercept you could have put as 0, -7. Other questions? Okay. Let's say I asked you to solve this quadratic equation. What are my options for solving quadratics? Box method, quadratic formula, completing the square, all of those things will work. Okay, so if I am looking at this one, what's the easiest method when it works? Box method. What should I do before I attempt box method on this? We need to divide everything by 2 because I have a greatest common factor here. So if I first just divide everything by 2, I get x squared minus 2x minus 3. Now it's a 1x squared, so I can just do the shortcut. Multiply to -3 and add to -2. Set each one to 0. And we get 3 and -1. Questions there? Let's solve some more. Yes, -4 times x minus 1 squared equals -48. All right. What would you do first on this one? We have two options. We could FOIL. What would happen if I just divided by this -4 on each side? Can you solve this for x without FOILing first? Yeah, we could do a square root method on this one because The only place I have an x is right here. So I could get that 1x by itself. Now, if you did FOIL it out and set it equal to 0, and you'll still get the right answer, but this will be faster for us. We can just do a square root. Anytime you add a square root, you have to do plus and minus. So I have x minus 1 equals plus or minus. How do I break up 12? 6 squared 4 would be 2 radical 3. Next step, we add 1. So we get 1 plus and minus 2 radical 3. Questions there? Let's practice a completing the square. Trying to review all the different options. We've done factoring, square root method, completing the square was the next one. For completing the square to work, what has to be true? The first term has to be a 1. So I start out by dividing everything by 2. And then if you'll remember, our next step was to move the constant to the other side. So, big mistake I've been noticing a lot is you guys aren't subtracting that over, you're just writing positive 9 over 2. So just a simple thing, but think about it. If I'm moving this, I have to subtract it, so this is a negative. Then we had to make a perfect square. So to do that, we did the middle term divided by 2 squared. We always divide by 2 and then square. All right. Negative 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4, so this is a 9/4. You add it to one side, you also add it to the other. Okay, so this should factor into something squared. So x squared would go to x. I've given you a couple hints to find that other number, but the easiest option is to look right here. After you divide by 2, but before you square it. So it's just x minus 3 over 2.
How do we get 3 over 2?
You always do the coefficient of x divided by 2. Okay, negative 9/2 plus 9/4 would be negative 9 over 4. Now this one is set up, we can do the square root method from here. So square root plus and minus what's the square root of negative 9? 3i. What's the square root of 4? So we just get 3i over 2. Add over our 3/2, so it's 3/2 plus and minus 3i over 2. So completing the square is one of the longer methods, but it does have the benefit of you can use it anytime. It will always work. Questions there? The next step we learned was quadratic formula. So let's practice one of those. I did tell you you need to know the quadratic formula, so what is it? So, is this one set up to use the quadratic formula yet? No, we first need to set it equal to 0. It doesn't matter what side you move everything to, so I'll just subtract over my 8. So x equals opposite of b, negative 4, plus and minus the square root of b squared, so 4 squared, minus 4, a is negative 3, c is negative 8, all over 2 times a, so 2 times negative 3. Negative 4 plus and minus the square root. This would give me a 16 minus 96 over negative 6. Okay, so I've got negative 4. How would I break up a radical 80? Plus or minus 4 radical 5 over negative 6. We could divide everything by negative 2.
Wait, isn't there an I?
Yes, thank you. So if I split these up, negative 4 over negative 6 is a positive 2/3, plus and minus. If you divide 4 over negative 6, you get negative 2. You guys usually put the I in front of your radical, don't you? You can go either place. Negative 2i radical 5 over 3. Questions here? Next thing we did was talked about inequalities. Should say solve each quadratic inequality. Typo in the directions here. So I've got a lot of these. We will do a few of them. I may not do all, but I want to make sure we understand this. So what do I do on this first one? Yeah, we have to set it equal, find what makes it 0, so we have to factor. We can do the shortcut here. Multiply to 8, add to 6 would be 4 and 2. So the things that make it equal 0 are negative 2 and negative 4. Now at this point you could always use a graphing calculator to help you, but we know this is just an upward facing parabola. So something like this. I wanted when it was less than 0. So less than is below the axis. So that happens right here. No equal to. So what would my solution be? Let's do greater than.
Oh.
Between those values. So it's just from -4 to -2. because I asked for less than, so below the axis.
Do we need main points?
No, the graph is really just to help you answer the question. It's not part of an answer itself. B, I did the same equation, but this time I asked when it was greater than or equal to 0. So we don't have to rework everything. We already have the graph. If I want greater than or equal to 0, it would be
Bracket, negative bracket, negative 2.
good. Is that one okay? Let's do another one like this. So again, I put the same equation 3 times. We're just going to answer 3 questions about it. So starting out, what do I need to do? Add the 10 over and do box method. Okay. Since it's not a 1x squared, we have to do the full box. So these multiply to 30 and add to 13. 10. So factor. X plus 1 times 3x plus 10. We need to figure out what makes each of those 0. So subtract your 10, divide by 3. So we get negative 1 and negative 10 thirds. Okay, so my graph. We have an upward parabola, so it looks like this. So now let's answer all the questions. Part A, I wanted when it was less than 0. So where would the less than be? Just in the middle. So part A, not an equal to, so we do parentheses, negative 10 thirds, comma, negative 1. Part B. This one is asking for greater than. Greater than would be above, there's no equal to. How would I write that? Good. Part C, I asked when it was equal. It's like saying, when is this thing equal to 0? What were my 2 answers to that? Yeah, not an interval on those because it wasn't an inequality. If the original problem is an inequality, that's when you have to have an interval. Otherwise, you're just listing the numbers. Questions? Last problem. If an object is projected directly upward from the ground with an initial velocity of 64 feet per second, the height of the object after x seconds is modeled by this equation, where h is height in feet. After how many seconds does it reach a height of 28? I wanted to put one of these on there. We haven't done them in a while, but we had some of those word problems before. What am I wanting to know? Okay, so where am I plugging the 28 in? Is it for the x or the h? Okay. We might not use our calculator for this, but now, we used the calculator before because we didn't know all those methods for solving. Now we do. Let's see if we can do this by hand. So if I subtract over my 28, what do you want to do with this? Quadratic formula? Sounds like a good option. So x equals opposite of b, so negative 64, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to simplify everything under that radical at once. So 64 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 28. What do you get when you do that? A really big number? Yeah. 2,304? Okay, since I'm talking about time, I don't really want to say it takes 5 radical 3 seconds, do I? It would be better to say 5.4 seconds. So let's go ahead and just type these in and get the decimals. So you're going to do negative 64 plus the square root of 2,304 divided by negative 32, and then we'll do the minus 1. And that, lucky us, 2,304 was a perfect square. It comes out nicely. I get 0.5. And when I do the minus, I get 3.5. Now we just have to answer the question that was asked. I want to know, when does it reach that height of 28 feet? What I've found is it happens twice. But if you think about it, this is like an upside down parabola. So it hit it once on the way up and once on the way back down. So the question was, when does that first happen? So it would be after 0.5 seconds. That's the first time you hit that height of 28. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am. I just plugged that whole thing in. Yeah, I mean, you could simplify it first, but oh, we need those in parentheses. Alright, for homework, what I've done is made a handout very similar to what your quiz is going to be like tomorrow and posted it on Classroom. So you've got time right now to work on that and ask for help. It's